I made a video talking about how fascism wasn't conservative at its core, and that's true. Now, there are some caveats to this that we'll go over in a second. This user wrote, fascism and conservatism are both ideologically right-wing. The fact that fascists see themselves as revolutionary has literally no relevance in their ideological classification. Now, I've made other videos where I semi-agree with you, but I think what happens is actually this. There's two factors at play. First, fascism is an irrational movement, so there's inherent contradictions in a fascist movement. It's not based on reason, it's based on emotion. So at the same time that they see themselves as revolutionary, they see themselves as a third way, a different way, transcending the liberal order, transcending the conservative way of life, the conservative political view or orientation. They also like to bring in tradition. They depend on certain mythic traditions even, and you could say that's conservative, to look at the past and want to conserve those traditions. And you could find that in every single fascist movement that I've studied. For instance, Mussolini trying to bring back the Roman Empire, the Nazis thinking about the Nazis' obsession with Tacitus's Germania, where they talk about, the Aryan race or whatever. So there is this element of trying to conserve something in the country. They think there's this national ethos, this spirit in the country, and sometimes this can have ethnic or ethno-nationalist overtones. It's not always completely racist, right? Like a lot of the early fascists in Italy were Jewish. But it can take on a racial element, but there's like a spirit to the country that they want to conserve. Okay, but when you study fascists, they typically do away. They try to upend the existing order. That is not conservative. It's just not. They're trying to undo and bring in new systems. Not that they just see themselves as a revolutionary force. They are a revolutionary force with hints of conservation therein. The second point I'll make is, as fascists come to power, it does tend to attract conservatives to the movement. Okay, now why does it attract conservatives? Because fascism is right-wing in a lot of ways. It's right-wing in a lot of ways. There are what you would call left-wing elements in fascism, and we're getting into the horseshoe theory. That's just like there's fascist elements in Maoist doctrine, communist doctrine, Marxist doctrine. Anyways, too much in the weeds, but the point is, yes, they're going to draw in conservatives and right-wingers to a fascist movement, especially if the other option is like a far-left communism. And with liberal people, traditional liberals, you're going to draw them probably to the Marxist, neo-Marxist, if they have to choose. This is what I'm saying. If you have to choose between fascism and the far-left communism or something, then if you're a traditional liberal, you're probably going to lean towards, the communist state, and if you're conservative, you're probably going to lean towards the fascist state. And you do this probably because fascism might keep alive certain religious traditions because they think it's part of the national ethos. There's a lot of fascism in Russia, Putin's thinking, right? And if you're a traditional liberal, you're thinking, okay, well, we want social welfare, we want a community, we're more globalist in our orientation rather than nationalist. So the problem with fascism and why it's hard to define is because, again, it's an irrational movement. So you're going to find inherent contradictions in the movement. But it is not a mistake. It is not a mistake to say that they are anti-conservative. And you can even see this in very, 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 I can't stress how faint the fascist tones are in America, right? Very, 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 very faint. You can't even, they're like proto-fascist tones in America. You can see how they treat rhinos, right? Republicans in name only. You can see this almost anti-conservative movement. Okay, if you want to call, certain aspects of the Trump administration fascist, you have to be very careful using that term, though. Okay, the most fascist thing that the Trump administration did was actually January 6th, because it's revolutionary, right? Like it's not conserving the system. Okay, so I see your point, but there's that inherent contradiction in fascism.